Well, welcome back to The Heat. We're talking about the historic decision by British voters to leave the European Union. Let's get back to our panel. Nathan, let's look at the political impact of this in Britain itself. Well, Cameron, the Prime Minister, has lost his job.
Yeah, he's resigned. He's going to leave in October. We have an orderly leadership election within the Conservative Party. Bets are that it could be Boris Johnson, who former Mayor of London.
Before this referendum, it would keep Britain stronger, safer, better off. Let's take
to take a different path. As such, direction. I will do everything I can as Prime Minister to steady the ship over the coming weeks and months. But I do not think it would be right for me to try to be the captain that steers our country to its next destination.
So, Nathan, how big a political miscalculation was this for David Cameron?
Well, I mean, he thought he had to do it to unite his party so that he could take on David Miliband, who was the Labour leader at the time of the election, and it had been a promise. But the effect has been way beyond what he imagined. Now he has basically lost his job. Yeah. But also, remember, we had the Scottish referendum. They are already saying in Scotland, 12 hours after this vote, that they're going to have another referendum, want to stay in the EU.
I'm going to stop you right there because the Chief Minister of, the First Minister, as she is called in Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, had something to say about the outcome of the referendum. Sure. You know, Scotland voted, of course, 62%
incredible
to remain in Europe, against 38% who voted to leave. Let's take a listen to what Nicola Sturgeon had to say.
As things stand, Scotland faces the prospect of being taken out of the EU against our will. I regard that as democratically unacceptable.
So we're talking about Britain, which could be broken up here.
OK, so Scotland looks like they're going to have another referendum, basically saying we want to remain within the EU, the UK is coming out. Yeah. Northern Ireland marginally voted to remain. But Sinn Féin's leader, as I was just saying before that clip, Gerry Adams, has said this actually means that we should have a referendum on Northern Ireland reunification with Ireland. We have seen very little violence in Northern Ireland over the last few years. There is the prospect of a divided province there as well, with unionists in the majority wanting to stay with the UK. It is a complete mess. Wales, of course, voted to exit very, very closely. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. You do have the prospect of having no UK anymore, just England on its own. Quite incredible. Now, before the days of the European Union, you could cope with that, you could say, because England and the UK had an empire.
Right.
No longer.
Don't have one anymore. Mohammed, you mentioned earlier on that this was, to a large extent, a xenophobic debate. This was about xenophobia. To what extent did immigration play a role in the way people voted?
It played a massive role. I mean, certainly there was a lot of conversations out in the communities as I was travelling around the country, people raising the issue of immigration over and over again. There is an impact on local services, and I think the chattering classes, if you like, the people who engage in those debates, either branded the people who raised issues around immigration as racist or wanted to shut down the debate, and we paid a heavy price for that. We didn't address the issue of immigration. There's been a huge increase in the number of EU migrants into this country. We've not catered for that, and I think that was used as a political football to hammer away. And we saw the most xenophobic, commentary from UKIP and its leader Nigel Farage. We saw that poster on Turkey, and it turns people's minds. You know, in communities where I come from, here in Manchester, in the north, there were places with huge Asian populations who were still voting for out. So it's a huge damning indictment on the political establishment.
Okay, Anthony, what's your response? Did your party exploit rather race and immigration as an issue to get the kind of votes you wanted?
OK, let's just go back, first of all, to Scotland and Ireland.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of nonsense talked about it. Which two parties changed their view between the 1975 referendum and the 2016 referendum? Sinn Féin and the Scottish Nationalist Party. In 1975, they both wanted to pull out. Now they want to stay in. They're the only two parties that changed. And it's absolutely ludicrous. Scotland won't go independent. It can't possibly. First of all, there's the question of the Scottish financial sector, which is propped up. About 80% of the money in it comes from England.
All right.
Secondly,
actually, why don't you talk about your racist and xenophobic campaign?
That's not decided yet at all. It's very easy to imagine a scenario where Scotland has a referendum again. You know, we've been there before.
And thirdly, they've changed their currency proposals 3 times. They were not during the Scottish referendum. They were talking about keeping the pound. 18 months later, they now want to take up the euro. Now, look, these are not really credible people. And as for Sinn Féin,
that's a good way of keeping them in.
If you're taking a political direction from them.
Okay, Anthony, I need you to address very quickly, I've just got a few minutes left, the question of immigration.
Anything but the xenophobia. Anything addressing but the issue of xenophobia.
Yeah, that's the question I want him to address. Yeah. Go ahead, Anthony.
Well, first of all, I've not been a member. You slightly miscast me. I certainly founded UKIP, but I haven't been a member for about 10 years. I'm not responsible for Nigel Farage, who I haven't seen for about 10 years, or anything he says. And to some extent, I agree that he is a man who's very incautious with his language. It's in fact one of the reasons why I fell out with him, apart from the fact that he tended to initiate unconstitutional actions in the party. Migration certainly is a big factor, and it's economically absolutely certain that migration of people with lower skills and capital, and most migrants don't have any capital, must impoverish the native population. And I don't think it's particularly xenophobic so much as concern about falling living standards.
Okay, let me go to Michael quickly. Michael, given this British vote...
Sorry, can I just come back and say, Anand, I just need to say, that it's that sort of inflammatory language against migrants. Migrants who come to this country, work very hard, contribute to our economy, and should be welcome in this country. It's that sly remark that is made about the fact that migrants are coming to this country for our welfare system or coming here to take our jobs. They work very, very hard, and we should recognise their contribution.
According to your side, to your side.
Right. I'm going to have to move on now to Michael. Michael, given this British vote, do you think that the European Union itself will now embark on some kind of reform programme to address these concerns that were brought up during this debate in Britain?
Yes, I would very much hope so. And but if you look at the history of what happened when there was a rather crucial referendum in 2005, when France and the Netherlands by referendum rejected the so-called European Constitution, there was a period of reflection, the very same words being used now. They developed a plan D for democracy, or a plan CC, closer to the citizens, and had all these wonderful ideas. And after years of frustration, they returned to business as usual. And I very much hope that this time it will not be business as usual. It will be a big debate about subsidiarity, about free trade, about getting Europe closer to the citizens, and much of what David Cameron was having some agreements on this February, you know, like the red card for national parliaments, like increasing competitiveness, and perhaps also reducing the access of EU migrants to the welfare state, to inward benefits. This is something that many other member states would like to see as well, and perhaps at least even without the UK, we can perform better with some of the ideas that the UK initially brought to the European Union.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks to all of you for joining us.